away, okay, that's all good. I just thought there might be a way I was missing.
Of course she did. Of course she Hello, hello. I was probably consuming all the wrong things into your ears, and I'm so sorry.
You want to know something? It all goes together. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and if I really can't find a part, then I just don't say it.
Or you sing
Exactly. Okay, great. I know, but I just don't want to sing again. Words in the show.
You doing everything's good?
because I'm so judgy.
Good.
So also, it's such a new prodigy that I will notice and turn around
And stop.
take it.
Yeah, correct.
What did you say?
Huh?
What?
Should move decorous.
Oh, because I'll just
Oh, peel pop. What did you see? I've heard mixed reviews.
What?
I've heard mixed reviews.
We have 20s based on more story.
Based on the genre, I was thinking that it's interesting. I would like to see it.
2 more years.
The farcical nature of pushing them.
I thought, well, we thought it was good.
This author, critic, who
Oh, she made her face now?
said should they push the genre? Like,
Or married?
it's been done. But it was a good film, but like, push, if you're gonna do it.
Shabbat Shalom.
Have you guys seen My Street?
Yes, we did.
Was it great?
So you have
Amazing reviews, yeah. Have you seen it yet? Are you stressed? What's happening?
I mean, I did it.
Yeah. Erin and her family watched it. My roommate said
Yeah.
she loved it.
No.
It's very artsy and her family enjoys it.
Something.
Like she looked around at one point and everybody was on their phones and she was like so in. And
It was fun.
they were just like kind of
When
going
I
because it
first
was
got it,
because we were not well, and I think there's like I think there's something about the way that the story is
Very handsome. It took me a while to figure out what was different. It was like something's different. I don't know what it was.
straight easy narrative. And they were kind of like
Just blossoming into your true self. Is that?
hello. Yeah, I can't wait to finish. I know. I need to just watch it.
Maestro.
It's about you know the one. Yeah.
Side.
You like it? We'll shout at each other. Here he is.
I went to Ireland with my mother and her best friend. When I got in the car and drove out of the room, she's like everywhere. It's a bit of a repeating thing. Like I have to say it every time we talk. Well, we were there for like a day. So it was a constant. But then I got a sheep gift for a year.
We did go
Wow. totally love that.
Next time when you put them on in March, I'll just set this one aside.
Okay, but do you know when it is?
They're figuring out.
So it's the week of the 20, like the 22nd.
The only thing is, which one's still up to the 8th?
Yeah, I'll be around for that one. My daughter actually will be home during that time. She is. I'll try to drag her.
No, I liked it. I was just trying to get into it. Ooh, I want one of those. You don't want it? Are you sure? Okay, we can do a share. I'll do one of these. I love a book. I know, but I'm a good sharer, I think. Do you like a book? Do you remember that? Yeah, yeah. Is he? Remind me, he has such a good name. That's right. How does he do in this weather? Precisely. He runs outside. He runs outside. You have to drag him out. He'll just hold it on as long as he can. Yeah.
Dash out, shortest route. Dash out,
Right. This is
reward. I don't forget. I hate it. I feel
loves it. She's part of dogs. But she thinks she'll get like halfway down the block and then she'll be like, sister, like, yes. No, and she refuses to today. And then I go, these are one thing, so one
All right, let's do it.
You know. I'm not buying another one when my kids have one.
I know. Well, especially when Kenny's got his stash going. When Kenny's got his stash going, it's like, forget it.
Shabbat Shalom. We are so grateful to have our choir with us this evening to bless us with your joyous sounds and melodies and elevate our spirits on these dark days. We take a moment to turn to those next to us, in front of us, behind us. Introduce yourselves if you don't know them and wish them a Shabbat Shalom, a day of peace.
One refrain, the verse. We stick with the verse, and like the last two lines, and then one refrain verse.
Page 10. Page 6. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship together. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the door of the synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. We turn to page 2 and we bring extra light into our lives on the Shabbat as we light our Shabbat candle. We sing together on page 2. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehad mikneh shel Shabbat. Continue on page 20. We welcome Shabbat into our midst. We sing together. Lech Adoni likrat kala penei Shabbat mikabela. Lech Adoni
verse 2. Likrat Shabbat lechu venelcha ki hi mekor haberacha merosh mikedem nesucha sov maaseh b'machshava tehila Verse 5. Hitoreri, kiva orech kumi ori, huri yori shir dabeiri, kvod Adonai alayich nigla. Verse 9. Moi v'shalom ateret bala gam besimcha u'v'tzola toch emunei segula boi chala
Page 28, we rise for our call to worship. Can be seated. Whether we are sitting here tonight or we are joining via our live stream, perhaps we're catching us this midweek because we had dinner plans. We are all loved by an unending love. We are embraced by arms that find us, even when we are hidden from ourselves. We are touched by fingers that soothe us, even when we are too proud for soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us, even when we are too embittered to hear. We are loved by an unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved by an unending love. Embraced, touched, soothed, and counseled, ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices. Ours are the hands, the smiles. We are loved by an unending love.
Page 34. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Page 36. This creative English translation of the Ve'ahavta by Julie Silver, so beloved by our congregation, I invite you to join me in singing. Love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you on this day shall be in your heart, shall be in your heart. Teach them faithfully unto your children. Speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise. Bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be a symbol between your eyes. Write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates, and upon your gates. Teach them faithfully unto your children. Speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise. Page 40, our Song of Freedom, the song we sang as we crossed the Red Sea. Our choir will lead us in the words of Mi Chamocha.
Turn to page 42 for our Hashkivenu prayer. We ask God to embrace us all in the shadow of God's wings. As the sun sets and darkness descends, we might find ourselves a bit lost, unable to know which way to move, which way to turn. And we ask that God protect us and shield us from everything that could cause us harm or distress throughout our journeys at night. And most importantly, to spread over us the Sukkat Shalom, this dwelling space of peace that we create here tonight in our sacred home. The rabbis teach us that we should say 100 blessings every single day. Now, some believe that you have to say a formula every single time, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for whatever it is that you have done. But there's also other ways of saying blessings. One can say, wow. Of course, we can also say a simple thank you to ourselves and others for all of the wondrous miracles that we have in our lives. And in doing so, we might find that we do say 100 blessings a day. But what the rabbis are telling us to do is to really focus on that sense of gratitude that we can cultivate. And when we begin our tefillah prayers, our Amidah, we're always grateful for those sounds too. When we begin our Amidah, we think about all of the things that we are grateful for. The 100 times 7, the 700 blessings that we have, with the 600 blessings that we may say throughout the week. And then we get to Shabbat, and we give a chance to say, God, thank you so much for everything that we have. And we join together and we lift our hearts in prayer. So we turn to page 46, and we rise and body our spirit for tefillah.
Chanting together. Adonai, sefatai tiftach, ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Page 48. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu. Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagimor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. Page 50. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. Page 52. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
You may be seated.
The text that contains the phrase Lador Vador, from generation to generation, is not technically a part of our Friday evening worship. That is a part of our Saturday morning worship. But we would be remiss not to look around the room this evening and see everyone ranging in age from the very young all the way up to the very wise. And so we offer these words, this musical setting of Lador Vador, from generation to generation. We are gifts and we are blessing. We are history in song. We are hope and we are healing. We are learning to be strong. We are words and we are stories. We are pictures of the past. We are carriers of wisdom, not the first and not the last. Lador vador nagid God lecha. Lador vador we protect this chain from generation to generation. Lador vador, these lips will praise your name.
Looking back on the journey that we carry in our hearts, from the shadow on the mountain to the waters that would part.
We are blessed and we are holy. We are children of your name, and the words that bring us meaning, we will have the strength to say. Lador vador nagid God lecha. Lador vador we protect this chain from generation to generation. Lador vador, these lips will praise your name.
Sometimes the way that we praise God's name through the generations is by asking God to bring us healing, to bring us out of darkness when we or somebody else has been stricken with an illness of mind, of body, and of spirit. As you turn to page 253, while we will in a minute pray our more traditional version that comes from Debbie Friedman, whose yahrzeit was this past Shabbat. If you look at the traditional text, we ask, Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu, may the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. And we are constantly looking back at the generations that came before us and the miracles that they may have experienced and the trials that they went through to inform our own. And we pray that just as they were able to continue to march forward and just as they were able to get better, so may God bring that healing to us as well. We continue on page 253 with Mishaberach, and if there are people who you are thinking about in need of healing on this Shabbat, I invite you to share their name out loud at this time.
Souls in need of healing with the refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
Take a moment for our own silent prayers. Shabbat Shalom. Last week I was at a conference with several rabbis, and I've been going to this conference for many years. There's about 25 of us, and it's one of the most spiritually uplifting weeks of my life, because we get to refresh ourselves and we engage in some really deep learning. But of course, this year was a little bit different, so we spent the first day taking a deep dive into processing how we were feeling and reacting to what was happening in Israel and Gaza and the heaviness that we were all feeling, and we were not of one unified opinion. And it was perhaps then no surprise that the next day, without necessarily having planned it this way, we launched into two very long text studies that had to do with tohu vavohu, the chaos of the formation of the world, and tahom, the deepest, darkest depths from which the world was ultimately separated and created before God said, Yehi or, that there should be light. Light didn't happen until a few verses into the story of creation. The other thing you should know about this conference is that it takes place in Vail. And the reason I tell you that is because this is actually where I had originally met Rabbi Gordon many, many years ago, and he was with us this year, which was awesome. So we got to learn together and study together. So one day I was skiing, and I took a divergent path from some of the other people, and I went into some aspen trees, and it was beautiful, and there were light glades. And then it got a little steeper and steeper, and then unfortunately the trees got thicker and thicker and thicker until really there was just one path that I could follow. And I just had to trust that A, I was going to be able to stop, and B, I was going very slowly, but B, that you get a little nervous. The trees get thicker, and you get a little nervous. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm ready for the exit point. And just when you can't see anything anymore, you can't hear anybody else, you don't know where you are, you pop out and you're on a run with several hundred people going down the mountain. And it's that moment of coming out of that feeling where everything just releases, and you say, okay, I can do it, and you can go down and meet up with the rest of the people. So thinking about both tohu vavohu, tahom, these dark places, and being in narrow spaces, I was thinking about Psalm 23, specifically the line, yeah, though I walk through the valley of deepest darkness. We might translate it as the word Gei Tzalmavet as the valley of the shadow of death, separating Tzalmavet into Tzel, which is a shadow, and Mavet, which is death. But if you look at most of the most recent translations, they really say that this is more of a deep, deep darkness, not always related to death. And that's going to be important, and that's how I want to think about this valley of deepest darkness. Because even though we associate the psalm with mourning rituals, since the beginning of time, people have been walking through these valleys of deepest darkness. They've been searching for a better life for them and their families. The book of Genesis, which we read a few weeks ago, concludes with Jacob and his family leaving the comfort of where they were in the land of Canaan, going down into Egypt because there was a famine in the land. They had to find a better place to live, to save their entire family and growing tribe. And they were fortunately welcomed into Egypt because Joseph had risen to power. And they were saved until a few years later when this new king arose and enslaved all of them, which lasted for a period of 400 years. Pharaoh was very afraid of the other. And we don't have to go back several thousand years or to Egypt to witness the ongoing of migration of human beings searching for a better life for them and their families. Since New Year's Eve, 9 buses of migrants have come right here to Wilmette, where they have been met and they have been dropped off. And fortunately, our village has chosen not to pass an ordinance preventing the buses, saying send them elsewhere, but they're sending a representative from the police who speaks Spanish to greet the bus and greet everybody and tell them exactly what's going to happen. We don't have the resources yet here in Wilmette and in the surrounding suburbs to help them as of this moment, although people are working on it. And they end up usually via train to go back to Chicago. There's a migrant center where they are processed so they can get appropriate resources, food, temporary housing, health care, and make sure their needs are met in the immediate. And so for many, Chicago, whether they came to Wilmette or Chicago, this is yet another way station on their journey to freedom. They're trudging through the valley, and they get to Chicago, but they know that they're not quite out of that valley yet. They still have some ways to go. And we hope that they can see the light ahead, but their journey is not yet complete. And we envision them walking with our Israelite ancestors, proceeding through the Red Sea. They almost were free, but these towering walls of water were on both sides, casting the shadow, just like that deep, dark valley that we walk through. And like those coming from South and Central America, most of us have ancestors who migrated here at one time or another. And most of them came here because they too were trying to seek a better life for them and their family. We all make difficult decisions in our lives that impact us and the people we love because we hope that there will be better and brighter outcomes in the future. But sometimes we end up in this valley, and it seems dark. And there's no paths out, left or right, so we just have to keep going. Sometimes we're in that valley because we chose to enter in search of something better. Sometimes we're thrust into that valley because of an illness or the loss of someone who we love or the loss of a job or some despair that we're feeling. There are many reasons one can end up in that valley. I want you to think about darkness for a moment. Perhaps it's not hard given the last week of the insanely cold temperatures and our short days. But think about darkness. Think about what images, but what ideas it conjures in your mind. Often when people think about darkness, we think about the cold, we think about black. We also might think about fear, and we might think about night. But scientifically speaking, darkness, or even a shadow as in Sel Mavet, is not something. Darkness is the absence of light. And it's a state of being that describes something that we are missing or lacking. Darkness might describe a time when we don't have enough light to warm our bodies or souls to guide us through these valleys in which we might find ourselves. But the deep darkness that's described in Psalm 23 is more powerful than the cold that we feel on dark winter nights. It's a darkness that can be touched and felt. It becomes tangible. It becomes something. And it reminds us of the darkness that God caused to descend into Egypt in the 9th plague. We read in the Torah that God caused this thick darkness to descend upon the land of Egypt for 3 days. And during this plague, both of these descriptions have this tangible nature to them. And our text in Exodus goes even further. It's described as a vayamash choshech, a darkness that can literally be touched and felt with your hand. And then very next verse, we learn that this manifests itself as a darkness of wickedness or calamity, because when it's such a darkness that you can't move, you can feel consumed by it. And we can't exist in the world. Our sages teach us that there's a linkage between the darkness of the 9th plague and the Tehom, that deep depth that we perhaps can't even conceive that existed before God created light in our world in the story of creation. The darkness in the Psalm and the darkness in Egypt was not the absence of something. It was more. It was something. It was a darkness that was causing fear and despair and sadness. I also, as an astronomer, sometimes think about a black hole, which is so powerful, it consumes the light around it. It draws it in away from the places it needs to go, or from its source. We invoke Psalm 23 at the most difficult moments of our lives, because it reminds us that we don't stop. We walk through the valley of deepest darkness so that we can feel the light and hope once again. And most importantly, the psalmist teaches that it's okay to ask for help. For the psalm says, Ki ata imadi, for you are with me. And that, of course, could be the companionship of God, but can also be the companionship of friends, of family who help us when we are in this most darkest times in our lives. Later in our Torah, because we experienced slavery in Egypt, we are reminded over and over again, love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Be kind to one another, give them food, clothe them, shelter them, house them, share your light with them, because you remember what it was like to be in these narrow, dark spaces. There's been a darkness, a palpable darkness that has been cast over the Jewish community in the last 100 days since the Hamas attack and the Israel-Gaza war. Some of us sometimes feel so consumed by this darkness that we don't really know how to feel, where should we feel, what to do. We simply feel consumed, and it's certainly a feeling that I have had, and I've heard from many others as well. But I knew what I needed to do, and shortly after October 7th, I called the local ministers or in the churches around us. Some of them I hadn't met yet, and I said, we need to get together, because that's what we do, is we gather as a larger faith community to find that companionship to help guide us and our community along this way. And we have been meeting since then about every month, and yesterday our conversation was focused on the migrant crisis situation, because we know that we have a role to play as a faith-based community, that when people are walking in these deep, dark valleys, we can provide light. And so I hope that I will have some solutions, at least ways that we can make a little bit of a difference and show that when people arrive here in Wilmette, they are welcome. And that while we might not be able to provide everything that we want to be able to provide them, we can at least show them that there is a glimmer of hope and light on their way. That we can love the stranger, because we know not only as the Israelite ancestors in Egypt, but we know we've all been in these valleys of darkness before in our lives. There will always be people who are walking in these dark valleys. Some of us might be walking there right now in grieving or illness or despair. But we know, and we have seen over and over, that we can get to the light at the other side, that we can emerge ready to accept that light and to share it with the world. May it be so. Shabbat Shalom. We continue on page 282. I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our prayer of oneness.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שבונותי שמיים ויוסר ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגובה מרומים, ובאלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 287. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Page 289 in the middle of the page. The light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candles, life is kindled, it burns, it glows, it is radiant with warmth and beauty. But soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, and in light we are seen. The flames dance, and our life burns down in gutters. There is an end to the flames. We see no more and are no more seen. Yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and life. On this Shabbat, we are remembering those whose yahrzeit, the yearly anniversary of their death, falls on this Shabbat. We remember Barbara Phyllis Lowell, Eli Fishman, Henry Livingston, Vernon Newscable, Helen Abraham Shaker, Julian Colby, David Goldstein, Margaret Ellis Wells Hamilton, Sally Yanowitz, Sidney Goldstein, Tybe Weinberg, Eva Fry, Meyer Pinsoff, Marilyn Werner, Michael Borowski, Simon Schofer, Dr. Harold Elner, Margaret O'Connor, Raymond Small, Mary Ridson Hudson, Rose Carl, Selma Schultz, Burton Barnett Subrin, Bernard Baker, and Bert Subrin. If there are other people who you are remembering on this Shabbat, I invite you to share their name out loud at this time. Together we rise as one community, united in mourning with those who are in mourning, and to say our words of Kaddish for those who have no one left to say Kaddish for them. Page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hiroteh ve'amich malchuteh, b'chayachon v'yomechon, b'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach l'olam olmei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran b'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. You may be seated.
I want to encourage you all to join us next week for the special Shabbat Shirah, Shabbat of Song, where we will move through various modalities and kinds of singing as we celebrate that very special Shabbat. And as well, Sunday afternoon, January 28th, Aviva Chertalk's performance of Meet Me in the Moment will be right here in this sanctuary at 4 p.m. Again, Sunday afternoon, the 28th. She's gotten really wonderfully rave reviews from all around the North Shore. I'm very, very excited that we get to bring her here to our synagogue. So registration details can be found on our website, again, January 28th at 4 p.m. for Aviva Chertalk. And lastly, lest I forget, we will say Kiddush and Motzi here in just a moment. And then if you're registered for dinner with friends, I believe dinner is served right after services. Andy's giving me the thumbs up, so as soon as services are done, straight up the stairs into our social hall for dinner with friends. An enormous thank you to our wonderful Sukkat Shalom Choir for lending their voices and their music this evening. We are so very, very grateful for all of you. And of course, as always, the remarkable Michael Querio behind the keys and waving the hands to make those voices sing. Thank you, Michael. We'll join in Kiddush and Motzi together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Hiratzon Mafanacha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu. May it be your will, O God, and God of all generations, that just as you have illuminated our path to get to this very moment to be together, may we take our collective and unique lights and share them with ourselves, with others, as we work to make our world a better and brighter place. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I mean, I will spot them.